What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Fight Club podcast. This is episode 8. It's been a long time since I posted, long time since I made a podcast. It's been since February, so a lot's happened. Things kept coming up, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and just make it a priority to come on here and make my videos. All right, so we're getting back at it. This is episode 8. I started last year after the Sphere, and so we're excited. I'm excited to get back at it. I don't have a whole lot. A lot's happened since February, but I'm not really going to go so far back because no one really wants to hear what I have to say about past events, except for maybe this last past event or last couple past events. But the first topic of the day is actually Illia Topuria. So right now, Illia Topuria moved up from the featherweight division from 145. He vacated his title, and he's a 155 pounder as of now. And he's trying to get a fight against Islam Makhachev. Now, rumor, I guess, is that Islam Makhachev is kind of waiting for the 170 division to get figured out with Bilal and JDM, and so he might be moving up. Obviously, he's homies with Bilal. He doesn't want to fight him, and so that's kind of up in the air. Islam's really taken the front of this and really been pushing a lot, publicizing that, you know, he's ready to fight, that Islam's scared of him, all this kind of stuff, right? And so I think that the first topic should be Illia Topuria, not necessarily Islam Makhachev, because that's kind of more of an interesting thing here. I think a lot of people like him. I like him as a fighter. I like the way he fights. I like he's very action-packed and he's very dynamic, but I'm not a huge fan of him, I guess, as a person. I just don't like him. I would love to see him lose. It just would be fantastic for me. I like people who are doing well for some reason to get derailed a little bit. And then maybe they I get back at him. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a hater. That's probably what it is, but, it is what it is. So he moved up from 145 and, he vacated, right? And why did he vacate? He vacated because, one, he said he's done all that he can do at 145, right? Two, he said making that weight cut is very hard for him and it's a little tough. Okay. So when we look back, he's actually coming up on a lot of people's pound for pound lists, right? I think Islam's up there. You have John Jones up there, but Ilya's in the talks in there. And I think that I would bet he's probably top 3, top 4 people when it comes for pounds on people's lists. And I kind of have a little bit of a rebuttal to that. I guess my argument is why? Right? The reason is because of his last 2 fights. His last 2 fights were against Max Holloway, obviously a legend, and Alexander Volkanovski, another legend, right? And he beat them in KOs, and he beat them in pretty spectacular fashion. Now, that's great, and that's all well and good, but I put asterisks next to those fights, okay? Why? You look at Alexander Volkanovski. He just fought in October, the year before, against Islam Makhachev. He gets head kicked, and then he's down on the cage, and he gets stopped because of punches. So, you know, that's in the first round. So that's October. I think it's like October 21st or something like that. He turns around, and he ends up fighting in January or February. It might have been January against Illia. Okay, so that's about 4 months. 4 months have passed since he had gotten kicked and TKO stopped. I'm looking up and I'm seeing what is the typical medical suspension for somebody who gets knocked out. They're talking about 45 days to 90 days. Okay, a month and a half to 3 months. That's kind of it's a broad term. It's a broad amount of time. And we don't know what he got. Obviously, I don't think that gets kind of put out there. Maybe it does, but I haven't found it. And so my thing is this. Let's say he got the full term, 90 days. That means within another 30 days, he was fighting, right? And in those 90 days, we'll say you can't train, right? You're not supposed to spar. You're not supposed to do any of that stuff. So it's likely to say that let's say he got the full term 90 days. Suspension. Maybe he was training but not sparring, none of that stuff. And then 30 days after that suspension ended, he fought Illia Topuria, and then he got knocked out in the first round as well. Okay, I don't think that was primetime Volk. I don't think that was the same Volk that fought just fought a couple weeks ago or 3 weeks ago against Diego Lopez. That's not the same fighter that fought back then. It's just not, right? There's no way. And at that time, if you remember, Volk was going through a lot of mental issues. So he was going through a lot of mental mental issues, and he wasn't kind of in the right mind, but he wanted fights. He wanted to keep on going, and And kudos to him for getting in there. But at the same time, I don't think that you can take away that, oh, he knocked out a legend, because there is an asterisk next to it, at least in my opinion. Okay, so let's move on to the next fight. The next fight was Max Holloway. Max Holloway's never been knocked out, and he knocked out Max Holloway. Okay, this is my argument on that one. Max Holloway had just fought, he was just coming off of a fight against Justin Gaethje at UFC 300 at 155. That was his second time fighting at 155. Obviously, the first time was when he kind of ballooned up and fought against Dustin Poirier on short notice for their second fight. It's safe to say, we all know it, he was a little fluffy Max, and he knows that. He just, for the physique that he had when he fought Justin from when he fought Dustin, completely different. I mean, he just looked really filled in. He looked good. He looked energetic. He was crisp. He was really, really crisp. Now, my dumbass thought, okay, well, he's got a little more size, got a little more strength. He's going to be able to kind of cut down to 145. He's going to give Illia a hard time. Well, I'm stupid. I don't know what I'm talking about. And so what happened is he cut down, and we already know this. We've known this for years, that Max, it's a hard cut for him to get to 145. It's tough. He always looks sucked up. He always looks like a skeleton, always. But, why did we think that after all these years of him having a hard cut, that now, after he looked his best at 155, the cut to 145 was going to be easier? It wasn't. It wasn't. And it was hard. You could tell. This is why it was his last fight at 145. He just wanted to take advantage of the opportunity, which I understand. But let's say this. He was diminished. There was no way that that's the Max that fights at 155. And he's not the old Max at 145 that he used to be back in the days either. It's just with age, the cuts are harder. So when it comes to him cutting all that weight and fighting, he still gave Illia a run for his money. He was still landing a lot of the elbows, right? A lot of the front end elbows, just like that. And then he ended up, obviously, in the later rounds, he ended up probably gassing out. He succumbed to the punches, and he got knocked out. First time ever. Okay. But that's an asterisk also, because that's not the Max that we're used to. That's not primetime Max, right? It's not. He's 36 years old, but 155, that's the Max, right? That's the new Max. That's the Max. 145, that's hard. He's not going to cut to that, right? And so when you're putting him on pound for pound lists because he knocked out those two guys, it doesn't make sense to me, right? He didn't knock out 100%. They were 100%, like they were ready to go. Alex, obviously, I just got knocked out 4 months before. Max, super depleted from cutting weight. Then all of a sudden, the old boy says, you know what? I'm done. I'm moving up. I'm going to fight 155. When you got killers, man, you got killers in that division. You got killers that are under you still waiting. Let's look. Let me see. Where this ranking at? Okay, let's look at this. Okay. So if I'm looking at this featherweight division, the one that he left, obviously, you had Alexander just beat Diego Lopez. Max is still on there, right? But he's not going to be there anymore. So really take him off. So you have Alexander champion. You got Diego Lopez. Ilya's still on there, but he's not going to be on there anymore, right? You got Evloev, right? You got Yair, Arnold Allen, Brian Ortega. I don't think he's really one that's going to make a difference to anybody necessarily. But Lerone Murphy's moving up, right? You still got Aljamain Sterling in there. I mean, you have people, Jean Silva, Ige, Kadar, Zalal. So you have a bunch of people still there down, kind of moving up. They're younger. They're going to be kind of coming up. And so for him to say that he has done everything he could in that division doesn't make sense to me, right? So then he moves up. He moves up to 155. And now he's saying that Islam is running, ducking, all this stuff. When you know that Islam, he's just waiting for the 170 division to get figured out before he can figure out what he's going to do next. He wants this guy, he wants Illia to fight a 155er to prove that he belongs in that division. That makes sense to me. Put him against Armin, put him against Charles, right? Put him against one of those guys so he can earn it, right? A Justin, a Dan Hooker. Not necessarily Dan Hooker, but I would say probably an Charles, Justin would be a good one. But show everybody that he deserves to be there, so then he can fight Islam if Islam's going to stay in that division, right? Now, if you look at the two records and you compare what Illia has done at 145 to what Islam has done at 155, there's no comparison. There's no comparison. put resumes next to each other. Excuse me? Islam. Islam has beat, who does he beat? Charles, Justin, um, Dustin. I mean, he's gone through and just demolished folks, right? And so, guess what? How about this? How about we use the same argument that Ilya has for Islam? Let's say Islam said, you know what? He come out and said, you know what? I've done all I can do in the 155 division. That's I can argue yes, he has. Okay. Next argument. You know, the weight cuts could be really hard for me. I can see that. He doesn't look fantastic when he weighs in. Most people don't, but he doesn't. He's a big guy. So he wants to move up to 170. Give it to him, right? But everyone's on this, Ilya hype train and they want this, but I'm not about it. I'm not there yet, right? I want to see him against a 155er. I want to see him go against maybe Volk, but a 100% Volk, a primetime Volk. That's what I want to see. So let's see that. That's what I want to see next. Anyway, I do think they do fight. I do think that Bilal pulls it out against JDM. I do. And so I think that Islam's going to stay there at 155, and I think that they will fight. They're probably going to, I would say, headline International Fight Week. So I would say that. But anyway, so that was my first topic, was Illia Topuria, and kind of what I see with him and where he's at, right? So let's move on to the next topic. And the next topic is, what do I think the best division in the UFC is? Okay. So I guess you could talk about more along the lines of, what is the worst division in the UFC, in my opinion, or not say worst, but what's the least entertaining division in the UFC? And I think for a long time, I mean, for back in the days, you can say that the heavyweight division was like prime time, right? It was exciting. You had a lot of these killers in Shogun, and I mean, you just had all these killers in light heavyweight. So you had John Jones, you had all these guys, right? And light heavyweight was the shit. I mean, really, really was. And then, you had great fights in heavyweight, but it's kind of been the opposite since John Jones has moved up to heavyweight. Not just since then, but for a while. But right now, heavyweight is boring. Nobody wants to watch heavyweight fights. I mean, it's lackluster. They don't have stars, right? You have Tom Aspinall just chilling and mopping everybody. And then everybody's on this John Jones thing. I'm not sure about you. I don't really care to see John Jones fight again, right? When he was a light heavyweight, yes. But when you look at him at heavyweight, what of his last fights do you want to see? Right? What of his fight against Cyril Gahn do you really want to see? Do you really want to see a chunky ass John, a muffin top John? Right? Do you want to see the way that he was against Stipe? That's not exciting to me. That's not fun to me, right? He's like breaking the record. He in like what is it? In 114 days, he could have the longest streak as a champion. Yeah, the dude hasn't fought in so long. He's just been chilling. Okay, so he just holds this off for another 3 months, and then he's gonna have that record. Get the hell out of here! It's too much. It is too much. Put him against Tom, or just get him out of there, man. He's just not exciting to me, right? If anything, I just want to see him lose. And maybe this is a hater podcast. Maybe this podcast right now is a hater podcast, right? Maybe, right? But anyways, that's where we are. So heavyweight, that ain't it. Light heavyweight, I do like light heavyweight. I like Alex Pereira, right? I actually got it pulled up here. Yuri, you got, Magomed, Ankalaev. They're going to fight again. Ankalaev and Alex are going to fight again. So I'm looking forward to that. I want to see what the issue was. If Alex, was really hurt, if he was just burned out, because I can see that. But, there's a lot of possible burnouts. There's a lot of asterisks next to people's performances lately. And it is what it is, right? So light heavyweight, they aren't the most exciting for me by any means. Right, let's go down to middleweight. You have Imavov, DDP, Imavov, Sean Strickland, Kamzat, Izzy. Then you got Robert Whitaker, you have Chabaralo and all that good stuff under there, right? That's a decent one. That's exciting. But for some reason, it just seems like they never fight. I don't know about you, but I feel like I never really see middleweight fights. It's just, they're not, I don't know. I just feel like they're not so active. Anyway, so that's not the one for me. There are action fights in there, but I don't get super excited to watch the fights. Next one, welterweight. You got Bilal. He's obviously not an exciting fighter. The style that he has isn't fantastic, but he gets the job done. So good on him. I like Sean Brady. I like tattoos. I like all that stuff, man. He seemed like he's a badass. So I'd like to see the way that works out. We just had obviously a welterweight fight this last week with Ian Gary and Carlos Pratas, and we saw how that went. Honestly, I didn't see the last round because my son was sick. He actually got hit in the head with a dodgeball, so he had a concussion. He's 8 years old, so he wasn't doing well. So I didn't see the last round. I did see the last minute of the last fight, or the last round, with Pratas on top of him trying to stop him. And it just seemed like that was the point when he started to get that, killer instinct. Because typically he's methodical. He starts out slow and then he kind of progresses. And Ian Gary was just stopping the tempo. Just stopping the tempo. He would get set, stop the tempo. So he did a really, really good job. Kudos to him. I like to see what Ian Gary's going to fight next. I like to see what Carlos Pratas is going to fight next. I like to see that as well. But anyway, so yeah, so that's not it though. Lightweight, I can get my hands around lightweight. It's crazy because I think I had talked about the podcast that the lightweight division was in that point where you have the top part of the division is all everybody over like 35 years old, and then you got young bucks under. But for whatever reason, the young bucks have not been able to overthrow the vets. And it's pretty cool, man. It's fun to see that because these are all names that you love, right? You have Charles, Justin, Max, Dustin. You got even Dan Hooker on there, and these are like guys that these are like OGs. Like love watching these guys because it's action, man. They're fun. They're great to watch, right? You do have other people behind coming on up, right? But I can tell you right now, I think Paddy Pimblett's going to be, he's a superstar now, but I think he's going to kill it when he starts getting a little bit more experience. And he's just starting to fine tune a lot of things and he's looking real, real good. I like that win against Chandler. I mean, I love that win against Chandler. He manhandled him like nothing, ragdolled him. Chandler, I mean, I would assume that he's going to, fight a couple more times and retire, or he's just going to be that gatekeeper guy that just keeps on fighting. I don't know. He seems too smart to just continue to lose all the time, especially if he loses like that. He just seems like he's not going to just stay in the game and just start losing days and years of his mental health because of that. So I feel like he's a good business guy and he probably has a lot of other things going on and he doesn't need to fight, but he wants to fight. So good on him. But lightweight division, that's one of my favorite ones. Now, I do love the featherweight division. The featherweight division, you got a lot of action there. You got a lot of up and comers there. You have just a lot going on. So I think the featherweight, lightweight are my divisions, the ones that I like the most. Bantam, it's all right. I mean, you get some good fights there. Umar, Sean O'Malley, like these are okay, but Sean's gonna fight Marab. I'm not crazy excited about it. I hope it's a good fight. I hope Sean isn't hurt like these videos come out with him on crutches. You know what that means. Maybe he's trolling. I don't know. But I'm not super excited about the bantamweight fights. Now, flyweights, I love watching flyweights. I don't know what it is. I love watching flyweights. I think it's exciting. They're action, they move, they're quick. They're just like it's bam, 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 bam. So I love watching flyweights. So I would say my top three, in no particular order, I'm just gonna go from lightest to heavier, is flyweights, featherweights, lightweights. Those are my top three. So anyway, those are my favorite divisions. Not to say that there's not any good fights in other divisions, but those are some of my favorite fights. Next, let's talk about Tom Aspinall. So we're going back to that heavyweight division. I'm worried for Tom Aspinall. I'm worried that at some point he's going to turn into, and I guess we can all start using this term, but turn into the next Michael Chandler, kind of waiting for the fight that he wants, waiting for that John Jones fight. I get it more with Tom because what else is there? Who else is there for him to fight, right? Michael Chandler, he had a lot of options. He wasn't a champion, so he had a lot of options that he passed on because he was waiting for Conor. And it turned out he lost, 2 years. I think it was like 2 years, 2 years of his fighting because he was waiting. And he could have had, this guy's active. He could have had minimum 2 fights a year. He could have had 4 more fights, right? He could have moved up a little bit more. I mean, who knows, right? Who knows what a year ago Mike was going to look like rather than now. And so it's a little bit different, but kind of the same. I don't really want him to just stay and just kind of chill, right? Ilya is doing the same thing in a sense, but what if Islam doesn't really want to fight right now? What if he waits and he waits and he waits and then Ilya just chills, right? He's going to start losing a lot of the years and times and he could be fighting. But, they do it for their own reasons and I get it. But at the same time, I worry that Tom is going to become the next Michael Chandler and we're going to start talking about it like that, right? So anyways, so that's that one. Let's see what we got next here. All right. So these are one of my favorite talks to have because I can't tell you how much I despise Jake Paul's stuff. I don't like him. I don't like his fights. I think they're garbage. I think that I've said before that I think he's a con man. How can you trust anything? How can you trust anything this guy's gonna do? Now all of a sudden, guess what? He's gonna fight Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., right? This guy who literally has a reputation for not taking things serious, has a reputation for messing around, has a reputation for not caring, no heart, giving up. And now you're going to fight this guy for what? Why? Because he has a little bit of a name, and it's funny because it's a co-promotion with I think MVP and Golden Boy, and so they interviewed Oscar De La Hoya, and De La Hoya is like, "Oh yeah, man, this is gonna be a good fight. I just if Chavez kind of focuses and does all this, he essentially was saying." He was essentially saying if Chavez does this, if Chavez does that, if Chavez focuses, if he trains hard, if his mind's in it, if he gives up all the other stuff, it's going to be a great fight. All right, let's break this down. So you're telling me that he was in, we'll say his prime, when he was really fighting and he was fighting these killers and he wasn't taking it serious then. Now all of a sudden he's going to fight somebody who is of a lesser caliber, who is kind of a joke, and all of a sudden he's going to take it serious now? No way. This is going to be a shit show from the top to bottom. It just is. The only fights that are ever good on these cards are like the Amanda Serrano fights, the Katie Taylor fight. Those are good fights. But to think that this is going to be anything other than garbage, a hot pile of garbage, it's not going to happen, man. It's not going to happen, right? So I hate everything about what Jake Paul does. I don't like it, right? It's stupid. It diminishes what the value is of anything. It bothers me. It bothers me a lot, and we already have an issue with the fact that, or at least I have an issue with the fact that, it just seems like the UFC is I guess the fight game in general is getting watered down. It's a new world, right? It's a new world. And now we're okay with this YouTube guy coming in here doing these stupid ass one-off dumb fights against has-beens, not has-beens, I should say, it's super disrespectful, but people who aren't in their primes anymore, or ex-UFC fighters, or all this stuff, like, or people who aren't even in the same weight division. Let me tell you this. Jake Paul, he challenged, I'm trying to think who it was. He challenged three main people, we'll say. Okay. Think about this. He challenged Anthony Joshua. Okay. And I don't know if any of these are real challenges or not, but he said it and he posted it. So let's just take it as if it was. He challenged Anthony Joshua. He challenged Gervonta Davis. He challenges Miguel Cotto. No, Miguel Cotto. Sorry. Hold on. Why am I drawing a blank right now? Canelo. Sorry. I don't know why I said Miguel Cotto. Stupid. I was thinking CNC. Anyways, he challenges Canelo. Okay. Look at the weight divisions that they fight in. Canelo, what is he fighting? 160s, 170s? I'm not good at the weight classes, so I don't know specifically, but I know he's in around that, right? 60s to 75s. Okay. What does Tank Davis fight at? 40s, 50s, 140s, 150s? What does Anthony Joshua fight at? 245? So you're telling me that he challenged somebody all the way down to possibly 140s, 130s, and then all the way up to 240? So he's challenged people within 100 pounds of each other? How is that respectable? He challenged Ryan Garcia too, I think, right? How is that respectable that he's going to challenge any of those people? And it's so crazy to think about it because in my mind, I was like, Anthony Joshua, that's one of the stupidest fights you can take. He's actually closer to weight to Anthony Joshua than he is to any of the other guys. When he fought Mac Tyson, he weighed in like at 224 or 225 or something like that, 230. So he's only at 15 pounds off of Anthony Joshua, right? So he weighed in at 225. Let's say he's going to cut all the way down to 170 and fight Canelo? Get out of here, man. This is stupid, right? But people watch it and it's dumb. And God forbid somebody pays for this shit. It sucks. It really does suck. And Netflix, they're idiots for doing it. But you know what? They do WWE. I hate wrestling. It doesn't make any sense to me. People watch it and they're just guys in underwears playing this is a soap opera for guys. It's I don't understand it. But it is what it is. If that's your excitement, that's your excitement. But I don't understand it at all. Right. And so it's just this level of not seriousness. You know, Jake Paul's doing that. You got the UFC over here holding events inside of the Apex. Right. You know, I miss the days and, you know, probably everybody says this and there's people who are even more educated, who have watched longer, who know better and whatever. But, you know, I remember when there was anticipation for fights. Right. I remember I watched Conor Khabib. Like that was anticipation. And mind you, there were press conferences and all that stuff back then. But like there was still for a while after that, there was still anticipation for the fights. There was buildup for the fights. There was like, I'm getting the day off. I'm getting pizzas. I'm getting beers. I'm getting a babysitter. I'm chilling. I'm sitting my butt down at 5:00. I'm starting to watch the prelims. 7:00. I'm sorry, early prelims. 7:00 prelims. 10:00 main card. Let's go. I'm locked in. That's how I was. That's how it was. Now it's a little bit different. Now you have fights in the Apex. You have fights that are very lackluster. I'll just come home from work. I'll miss the prelims. I'll sit down. I'll talk to my kids, and then I'll have it playing on the side here. Because it just doesn't catch you. It seems like there's no more heart in the UFC anymore. I guess in MMA in general, it just seems like there's no heart, right? So maybe they'll get back to it, but it's just oversaturated as things do. Just it's an oversaturation of the product. There's way too many events. And in having all these events, you have to have a lot of athletes. You have to have obviously a big roster, and then you have to put fights together. And there's no way the matchmakers could put all the fights together that are super exciting. Sometimes they just probably throw fights together they think are going to be exciting, but they just don't come out, right? You've had a lot of recent fight cards that are spectacular in the prelims and early prelims, and then the main card or main fight flop it out. Like they slow down and it's opposite, right? And there's very few when you can get a jam-packed card from the bottom to the top. Kansas City this last week, that was a good card. Like that was an exciting card. There were some good fights. You know, Anthony Smith retired. He got mollywopped. I like Anthony Smith. I think he's a badass. I think it's cool. I like the way that they sent him off. He seems very liked. He's a likable guy. So that's okay, you know. But anyway, that's my thoughts on Jake Paul, on I guess the state of boxing and fighting in general, for right now. So I can tell you there's obviously some fights coming up, and there is actually one card that I really wanted to go to. If you remember at the beginning of this year, I had said that my goal for this year was to go to a UFC event. Now, Raul, my brother, had messaged me and he'd said, "Hey man, you know, Max is fighting Dustin. Dustin's a retirement fight. It's in Louisiana, which I'm in Indiana, so it's on my side here." And I was like, "Damn, that's dope." And he's like, "We should go." Now, I'm going with my wife for our 10-year wedding anniversary to New York the next day. We're leaving really early in the morning, so I can't go. But that would have been like the primo fight to go to. But he's going. So that's super exciting, man. And you know, I'm in this moment where like I'm on the East Coast. So those fights, the main card, like the main fights, they don't happen till 1, 2 in the mornings, depending on how the other fights go. So I could be exhausted, but I think I'll be exhausted for that fight, you know? But let's see. May 3rd, this weekend coming up, we got Corey Sandhagen and Davison Figueredo. And then after that, you got your 315 with Bilal and JDM. Then you got Burns Morales in May, and then Blanchfield Barber, which that's in the Apex. I ain't watching it, or I'll watch after. Then you got Marab and O'Malley. You know, we'll see. Hopefully O'Malley's healthy. I think that'll be a good fight if he's healthy. Then you got Kamaru Usman and Joaquin Buckley. That's a banger. That's an ATO, I think. Yep. That's going to be a banger, and I want to watch that one for sure. That's June 14th. Fantastic. And then you got Hill Roundtree. That's going to be a primo one as well. Hill Roundtree is going to be really, really good. Then the to be determined ones. But I think the next one that they actually have locked in is Holloway Poirier 3. And that's going to be a fantastic card. Let's see if they have anybody on the undercard yet. No, just them. And that's all it needs. You could sell that thing right there. You could just throw a bunch of just action-packed fights under that or whatever fights. That fight will sell that card. That fight's fantastic. I wish I could go watch it, but it is what it is. My 10-year anniversary only comes by once, right? So I got to take advantage of that. We're going to go to New York. Never been there. We're going to eat at some nice restaurants. We're going to go sightsee. We're going to be there for about 3 days. It's going to be fun. So anyways, yeah, so that's all I have for you guys for this episode. You know, I'm going to, again, start to be a little bit more regular on this. I'm going to start to make sure that I'm posting more content. I will get to a fight this year. I will. Kind of the hard part too is that I'm in the restaurant business. So, I'm a GM for some restaurants, and so it's hard because Fridays and Saturdays that's our game time. But once we get a little bit slower when it comes to the winter, that's when I'll be able to go. So hopefully towards like November, December, maybe October, I'll be able to figure out something and go to a card. Because it's not just going to a card, it's it's tickets, it's food, beer, it's a car rental if you need one, it's the airport, it's the hotel, it's a lot. It ends up being more than just that, obviously. I would love my dream thing, I would love it is if the UFC came to Chicago. If the if the UFC went to Chicago, that's 3 hours away. Oh, that'd be fantastic. I would drive there. It'd be great. So that's my dream. I'm gonna throw it to the UFC gods, and we'll see if they return and they send it to me and grant it for me. So I hope that's the case. But thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. I'm back at it. I got my little hat going. I got my chain here. This is from Jackson, by the way. This is a little baby 8mm Cuban link chain. I got my bubbly here. I'm in my son's room because I still don't have a podcast studio, so that's why you see the Raider flag behind me because he's a Raider fan. But this was fun. I'm glad to be back at it, and appreciate you guys. And I will see you guys on the next one, and hopefully it's next week. Peace.